Yo! What's up, guys? Terrell here, Terrell Game Vlogs here to bring you Monster Musume Episode 5 review. This episode is pretty much covering what I thought it would cover. It's a continuation from the Sue chapter, going right into Marrow, and then it's like the first Marrow-focused chapter. Even though in my mind it's more of a Marrow/Mia chapter. It's like a character development for Mia, whereas it's just kind of like really putting what kind of character Marrow is in this episode. I know some people were kind of mad with the spoilers, so what I'll do is I'll talk about the episode proper, and then after that I'll start talking about stuff that regards to the manga and the correlation. So this first section will just be about the episode. I'm actually surprised how little censoring is in this episode, considering I thought this would be the episode that would get a lot of censoring. For the most part, it didn't. I could only think of maybe like 3 or 4 scenes. Even the scenes where like Marrow's top comes off, they don't. They do like that, you know, hair over her nipples and shit. But they actually show her like bare naked breasts, just, you know, hair covering the nipples. And I'm like, huh. Usually they would have just cut that section out like they always do in those scenes. So I'm actually surprised that they only did that. Almost every Sue scene I'm surprised that they kept in, which was the only scene that looked like they censored was at some point you see Sue like latch on this Centuria's breast, and you see like the sucking animation. I feel like that's probably got to be zoomed out to see everything, but that's literally like the only scene that's censored. Like they kept everything for the most part. I was surprised. I'm really surprised. So I don't know if the first 3 episodes were test drives and they're like, all right, we can get a little bit more reckless with what we will and will not show, because they still. Is it that chapter? I mean, is it this? I think it's this episode. No, it was last episode where they did the thing where, you know, Centuria comes into the bathroom and they do the pan up shot. They've done this with Mia too, and they'll go all the way up to the waist and then they'll skip and go right up to where like the cleavage would have started and then goes to your head. And I'm like, well, I don't see why you need to cut that out. You can't show a girl in her fucking bikini and shit. And then later now you can show fucking orgasm scenes, which is really what the first half of this episode is orgasm scenes. This is half of the reason. By the way, this is not the last time we will see that. And look forward to it, because those are probably, I will say, I agree with a lot of people. Bucket Sue is adorable. Not totally sure why, but I get a keychain of that. If they made a keychain out of her being in the bucket, that's adorable. The animation is still being consistently good. I'm very surprised, especially with at that very end with the little pseudo fight scene with Mia and Sue facing off and the red backdrop and everything. That shit looked cool as fuck. I was surprised how well animated that crap was. It was crazy. So we're introduced to Marrow, and by the end of this episode, you kind of understand her character trait. Marrow's character gag is that she has a Little Mermaid complex, meaning she has a mistress complex, which really means that she never wants to be the one, the girl chosen. She wants to be the girl in the background. Like, she wants to be the mistress, not the wife. Which makes for an interesting dynamic, and I hope they don't use it next episode, but there's a gag involving her that is insanely funny because of her like, I'm going to say this leads into another gag that she's going to have later on that is absolutely funny as hell. Because the gag that it's being based off of is a traditional anime trope gag. It's not even like a harem gag. It's just an anime trope gag, period. That tragic romance obsession is going to work in so many different ways. It's fucking amazing. It's like oh my god. I'm not going to talk about it. Not going to talk about it. It's like, if we get to it, we'll see it. Based on the previews, they're going right in the rat genre. I'm going to stop it right there. As far as the episode was concerned, I like the episode. The Sue stuff is orgasmic. Yeah. The first half is orgasmic, and the second half is deliciously tragic. Yeah, there we go. There's a pun because of the character traits and everything. Ha! 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 I'm a funny guy. I'm a funny guy. I'm a funny guy. No, I'm not. So that's for the first half. That's the non-spoiler stuff. That's not talking about the manga or any of that relation. Now, for the manga-related stuff. So that's the general review. Here's the manga kind of spoiler review. as the episode stuck to the manga, that's confirmed. For those who were curious, they did skip the Mon chapter like I thought they were. And as I said, the Mon is just the people that the characters we keep seeing in the ending with Miss Smith. That's who the Mon are. That chapter was supposed to come right after, I believe, the first half, and they skipped it. They got to show it. It has to be shown, but it's also one of those chapters that you can show literally anywhere. The problem I have comes in the form of the ending. The ending preview for the next episode confused me on 3 different levels. One, apparently the Mia cooking thing is not ruined because they're going to do it. Because it's the preview for the next episode. Because it's her with her hands burnt and her pulling out the skin. That's from chapter 7. Even though the anime at this point is floating around chapter 12. And then fucking chapter 14 is also paired with that. Now here's the problem I have with that. For one, chapter 7 being shown means that now they're still doing most of the chapters. And I know the Mon chapter has to be animated. My biggest fear now is that the Sue chapter won't be animated. And that chapter better be fucking animated. That's like one of my favorite fucking early chapters in the manga. You better animate the whole sick shit. The sick chapter with Sue. And that would be so... Especially because that's such a big issue to me. Because it's the chapter... Thank you, phone. To clarify, that's the chapter that kind of outlines Sue's feelings towards Kurusu. Because as you can see right now, you know, she gets along with Poppy, and she's not like a bad person, but at the same time, you don't know if she's like a part of the harem without actually being a part. She's kind of like Meryl in that sense, where she doesn't really feel like she has like a thing for Kurusu. That chapter defines where she stands in that situation. So to me, to not do that chapter will hurt Sue later, especially because there are a few things that happen later on in the manga. Probably around the key chapter for those who read the manga, that ending is not going to work if you don't have this chapter backing it up in some emotional way. So that bothered me. The Poppy Lane X chapter, for those who don't know, Ratchura is featured at the end of that episode. Here's my problem with that. Well, it's not really a problem as much as it's me really saying they're trying to introduce a girl every episode. They've introduced a girl every episode, I believe, except for like episode 3. Episode 3, I think, is the only episode that hasn't introduced a new girl. 1, 2, 4 introduce Sue, and 5 introduce Meryl, and 6 will introduce Ratchura, but won't actually she won't be in the group, but she will be shown next week. I'm a little bugged out why they decided to do Mia's chapter all of a sudden, why they placed it so much later. And I think it's partially because they're trying to get all the girls out of the way. The problem is, Lala will still come the way she comes, primarily because you cannot introduce Lala without going through all the chapters that build up to Lala. So Lala, I don't think will be pushed any further. I'm hoping to God, because they're going to have to do something. If this is only 12 episodes... we are now back to square one, where now it's like if you're doing 2 chapters an episode, there's not enough material to do everything up to 25. The best you'll get is at 24. And although 24 could be an ending point, 25 is a better ending chapter to me than 24 is. Especially if this thing doesn't get a second season. 25 will work better. Now my confusion is, okay, so you've decided to animate the Mia chapter. What... are we just not gonna? Is 24 gonna be the final chapter animated? And then on top of that, another question is, how are you gonna do that chapter, which is chapter 7, when that chapter comes before the introduction of Sue and Meryl? Meaning Sue and Meryl aren't in that chapter, but in the anime, that episode is coming after those 2 have been introduced. Well, they're not in the chapter, which now makes me wonder how we're about to get filler. We're either going to get filler or they're just going to completely ignore those characters. And I'm more prone to believe we're going to get filler than anything else. And my biggest fear is if anyone knows Meryl's gag regarding to Mia and her cooking, you would know that that gag happens in the Sue sick chapter. If that happens next week, that makes me really concerned about that chapter, because then I'm gonna be like, well, are they just not gonna do that chapter? And also, we have got to introduce the Mon at some point. I'm hoping that's next. And see, now I know they're gonna put it off. They're probably gonna put it off, and I think it's because they're bunching the chapters that flow with the characters to do that type of shit. But the problem I have with that logic is that, like, I understand why they're doing it. It's like, you know, you bunch Sue's chapters together, you bunch Centuria's chapters together. Well, actually, I don't think they're not Centuria's. They bunch Sue's and they bunch Mero's chapters together, and they're bunching them together because it flows better as an anime. If they did it like the way it is in the manga, you would literally have like half episodes focused on two different characters, and it wouldn't feel as cohesive. So I understand why they're doing it, but it's gonna turn out to be a bitch if they end up skipping some of my favorite shit. But I understand why they're doing it. That, you know, because the way the chapters, and it just kind of aggravates me, because chapter 7 was meant to flow into chapter 8, which was Sue's introduction. Because of the way the anime decided to do it, the ending of chapter 7 doesn't flow into chapter 8 now, because it's going to go right into the Poppy laying egg thing, which really serves as a Poppy episode with like a slight build up on Ratchura at the end of it. This should be interesting. Now I'm worried if they cut out anything. My biggest fear going into this one is to see how they handle Mero and Sue for the Mia chapter. If they handle Mero and Sue correctly and don't do what I think they might do, then we should be good. Because for those who are wondering why my biggest, as I said, there's a gag that Mero does in that chapter, that does in the Sue Getting Better chapter, that correlates here, because it's the whole cooking thing. Her reaction to Mia's cooking. If they use that gag in advance, they're not going to be able to use it again for that other chapter. I'm trying to find it real quick. It's chapter 7. Because Poppy and Centaura aren't focused that much in that chapter either. But they're probably still going to show them. Well, actually, no. Never mind. Maybe I'm wrong. Oh, I'm wrong. Never mind. I thought there was a gag I'm missing. Am I really not missing that gag? I'm looking through the manga right now just to make sure. Or does it? Oh no, it comes at the end. Yeah, it comes at the end. I don't know how this is gonna go. It's at the very end of the episode, so they can easily just omit Sue and Mero's reactions, but this will also see if they can get away with using that Sue sickness chapter later on in the manga, because at that point all you really gotta do is come up with a situation for Ratchura, since she isn't in that chapter either. But I'm not gonna drag this out too long. Episode is fine. I'm just super worried about where we're going now, because next week we'll have chapters. What is it? Chapter 7 and 14, right? Yeah. It's chapter 7 and 14. Actually, it makes it even worse because the beginning of chapter the beginning of chapter 14 is right after the Sue chapter, which at the beginning of the chapter, you know what? I'm not even going to say anything. I don't want to spoil too much. I'm just kind of like, We'll see. We'll see. Anyways, this has been the Vlogs Game for your boy Terrell. Thank you all for watching, and I shall catch you all later. Peace. So, what do you want to pour water on yourself now to get Sue to come get you? Just asking, bruh.